Welcome to Legislative Updates. I'm your host, Doug Thompson, and as always with my special guest, John Barker from the 70th District. And he always brings a important guest in, and in the middle with us, of course, is Dan Hawkins from the 100th District. And Dan, thank you so much for coming in.
Thanks, Doug.
And this is your first go-around as House Majority Leader?
It is. First, just finished the session as Majority Leader.
So how's that going?
You know, Doug, it's been a lot of fun. We have our moments. You know, the Majority Leader's job is, of course, to schedule the debate on the floor. We meet with a lot of people, both pro and con on any particular subject, and then we decide what actually gets debated, and hopefully we win. We don't always. We've had our losses this year and had our wins, but I think we won more than we lost, so that's a good thing.
Well, that is a good thing, and I've heard really good things about what you've done. John brags about you. You and John went in at the same time, so you're both on your fourth term, and it is tremendous. We've said it multiple times. I say it whether I'm on camera or off camera. It is really an advantage to have an experienced legislator from our district that's there, and John's been there this, like I said, the fourth term. Well, pretty soon when you get into that situation, you're up there with people. You come in at the same time and you work together and you learn, and it just continues to grow. And John, of course, being a retired judge, he's picked it up very quickly. And John, tell me, what do we got going coming up?
Well, I don't know how important Representative Hawkins is. We came in together.
Well, he said he was really important when we came in.
But I've had three majority leaders since I've been in the legislature, and I will admit on camera that Dan has been the best majority leader that we've had, because he keeps the caucus informed. Even though you may on occasion disagree with him, he listens. And then he does whatever he wants, but he does listen. But no, he's been a great majority leader. I look forward to one day him being the Speaker of the House. But we've been out now for about 3 weeks. We're going back the 29th for sine die, and the governor has taken a few actions that I think we're going to call her on. I think we'll go in and. You know, she did cut $51 million out of our state retirement program, which cost us $10,000 a day in interest, that $51 million, because we have to pay 7.75% interest, and that works out roughly, I was told, about $10,000 a day. So we're going to try to override that veto and make that payment. We have the money to make the payment, and that's the important part. We have some revenue. It's like, I think with her cuts, we left a balance of 7.75 or 7.75%, I guess is what it was. And so if you have the money, I'm kind of guy, if I've got the money and I will payment, I'll pay it. I can't believe she campaigned on helping Capers and then not making the $51 million payment. It was a little shocking to me. But she also campaigned she wasn't going to raise taxes, and she did, because of the federal tax cut at the federal level. We're going to pay more taxes this year because she vetoed our bill that would correct that. Dan, that's about right? No,
that's true. And actually, I've thought a lot since she made those vetoes right after we left veto session. She vetoed our budget. But the Capers is really interesting because John and I have been on that committee virtually our whole time at the legislature, and we really have worked hard to get us back into a better funding situation. We started out somewhere around 52% in 2013. This year at the beginning we were about 68% funded, so we've made some great strides. At the beginning of the session, we paid back a $115 million loan from Capers that we had made a couple of years ago. That was costing us $20-some thousand a day, so we paid that back. During her veto message, she made the comment that, well, we've already paid money back, we don't need this payment. Well, this was actually our scheduled payment. Right. And so she's vetoing something that's hurting all the state employees and certainly all the teachers. I can't imagine the teachers not coming out and just blasting her, but nobody said much, so it's kind of interesting seeing that dynamic happen right now.
Because we have the unfunded actuarial, and we've worked to reduce that, and she campaigned on it, and yet she's not going to make the payment. We'll pay an additional $10,000 a day until we do make the payment. And you're right. The only reason she signed the additional bill, and Doug, we talked about that earlier, it was costing us $20-some thousand a day, and she waited till the last day to sign it, and that cost the state money. So yeah, she's saying one thing in her campaign, and her actions have not shown that she was serious about her campaign promises.
Well, we're going to cut away here in a minute and take a break, but that's one of the subjects that came up. I remember multiple times people saying, well, what about this KPRS fund? Are my KPRS funds secure? And it's nice to know you've taken it from 52 to 68 and the potential to go further with it. We're going to cut away, take a break. You're watching Legislative Updates. Welcome to Legislative Updates. I'm your host, Doug Thompson, with John Barker. And as you're watching this on the screen, that's John Barker on your left, and in the middle is Dan Hawkins, the House Majority Leader from the 100th District, which would be the Oberlin, the Wichita area. Yep. And thank you for being here, taking time to come in. And we're in an area that's under a flood watch, and it's a tough situation going on for small towns. This is John's territory, so we've got Chapman, Abilene, Enterprise, Solomon, and all of those are dealing with a lot of flood issues. And so we appreciate you guys taking time to come in, because I know you got to go back on the 29th to the legislature and do work. And John, when you get back, what are you going to be working on from there?
We got a number of things we've approved this year, but you're right about the local flooding. I was over in Solomon this morning. They've done a great job. Solomon Electric corporation has supplied people to block off the main streets with barricades, and they've got some really neat barricades that they got from the Corps of Engineers. And I've been down to Chapman, of course, where they're sandbagging about everywhere.
Yeah, they are.
Hopefully, it's not as bad as they're projecting it could be. You know, we've had enough rain. We can take a break. The East Coast needs rain, so we could send it to the East Coast. But, you know, mostly I was going to talk about the T-Works program. We funded, and we mentioned it last week, you know, we put additional $80 million. We're going to put more money in it next year. It's projected. The program that I really like is for local governments. If they can come up with 25% of the funding, the state will automatically, whatever program they have, they come up with 25%, the state will then put in 75% and do that project for them. Doug, as county councilor, I know you appreciate that.
Yes.
For your roads and bridges, of course, we talked about getting the legislation approved this year to allow the cities of Dickinson County to vote for the additional sales tax on the roads and bridges. But T-Works, folks, we're going to get more money in T-Works every year. Our roads are good, but we need to maintain them and keep them as good as they are. So we have planned to put more money in it. I don't know, with other expenditures, it's going to be hard if the governor wants to spend all this additional money on other social programs, but you know, highways in the state of Kansas are a big item, and we need those. And I know Dan wants to talk about education.
Yeah, but before we finish up on the roads, you know, we had been taking that 0.4%
Right.
sales tax out for a lot of years. We kept money in, so that's really the money you're talking about.
Exactly.
Is that we did not take as much money out of that program as we've taken in the past to balance our budget. So,
Exactly.
Yeah. So that's a good thing, and we know our roads and our infrastructure. That's actually a core function of government. And one of the things that we've talked about this year consistently is, and especially from more of a Republican side of things, is that we really need to pay attention to our core functions of government, and we need to fund those properly. And that kind of segues us into K through 12, because over the last, a lot of people don't realize this, Doug, over the last 2 years, we've committed an additional $3.13 billion to education, to K through 12 education specifically. After this budget year, once we get through and all the dust settles and we start into our 2020 budget year, we're probably going to be right around 65% of our state budget will go to K through 12 and higher ed.
Right.
So 65%. Another 28% goes to our Medicaid and our social services function. So that puts us over 90% going to those two areas.
Yeah.
Literally, that leaves 7% for the rest of our government, to pay for the rest of government. And the rest of government is our core functions. That's corrections, that's highway patrol, that's the Department of Ag, whatever it
of
might be.
corrections and all of that.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So literally K through 12 is starving the rest of government. And quite frankly, the people that are suing the state, the schools for fair funding, they came out and said during the session, you know, maybe other parts of government are just going to have pain so we can get what we want. It's going to be interesting, Doug, when we come back, and it'll probably be sometime in June when the Supreme Court finally makes a decision on whether we've done good enough. But good enough. That's another $360 million when we finish this year that we will have put into K through 12 education.
And from the date of the lawsuit, 2010, till 2021, the state will have put an additional $1 billion into K through 12. $1 billion in that period of time. And they're telling us it's not enough. It's hard to imagine.
So we really kind of feel that no longer is it that they need it. Now it's just want. We want more. We want more. Where does it ever end? Quite frankly, in 3 years, we will not be able to make that payment to education. So we've tried to take a longer term perspective. This year, our education budget committee spent a lot of time trying to move the needle. If you look at the outcomes haven't changed in 10 years.
You mean the results from more money?
Of that money. So they kept saying, you got to put more money in, more money. That's going to give us better outcomes, and it hasn't. The graduation rate hasn't changed a bit. Those outcomes, that bottom 25% is not shrinking; it's growing. So is putting more money in going to solve the problem? We don't believe so. Yeah. So really, it's time for us to look at what's going to change those outcomes, and that's what our budget committee did. And those were summarily rejected by the legislature, and they did not become a part of the ultimate funding bill that passed the legislature this year.
Yeah. We wanted outcome-based results. You know, you'll put the money in, but you have to put it in. And the Supreme Court, in a decision last year, indicated that 25% that are not being successful, that's where you need to be spending the money. Mm-hmm. And you know, we tried to get that done, and it failed, but it should be all outcome-based and evidence-based. I mean, programs that work are the ones that we should be using, not programs that feel good.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I understand. All right, we're going to cut away, take a break. You're watching Legislative Updates. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Legislative Updates. I'm your host, Doug Thompson, along with, as always, my special guest, John Barker from the 70th District. And special guest today, of course, Dan Hawkins from the 100th District out of Wichita. Now, when you come back for what's called veto sessions, what do you anticipate is going to happen there?
Well, it's really the sine die, the last day of the session. Normally, that's just a ceremonial day, but you can take up items that have been vetoed since the veto session that was passed during veto session to sine die, and that's the reason we have sine die, 25 days later, to give the governor an opportunity to either sign the bills, or they pass without her signature or veto. So we have a number of things that I think the majority leader, and I think this Jim Denning last week, the Senate majority leader, indicated that they'll bring it up for votes. I know I'm getting a lot of emails, particularly from realtors, that are asking to override the governor's veto on the appropriations bill, on the cuts.
On the tax bill.
On the tax bill and the appropriations bill. So I'll ask Dan. He's got the plan.
Yeah, so he's absolutely right. John's, there have been a lot of emails come out from the realtors specifically, but other groups too, business groups. So the tax, and that's something we've known about for a while. She vetoed our tax bill early on. And then when we were in, that was Senate Bill 22, then we came back with, during veto session, a House Bill 2033 that was really just it's a pared down version of that. So we brought the cost down a little bit as far as the fiscal note.
And it was what she asked for.
Yeah, she told us. She says, that's too much. You're going to have to pare it down, so we did. Ended up about $87 million as the fiscal impact. This is money that should be the people's money, that the state of Kansas is stepping in the middle, taking it away from them because of the federal tax cuts. So it's a windfall. So we were trying to return that to the people. She vetoed it. So there's a lot of work to get everybody back and to be able to override that veto. So that's one. But then this last Monday, she really did the final piece, and that was when she was working on the budget. She did 4 line item vetoes in the budget. We talked about the capers, the 51 million to capers. So that was one of them. She also vetoed the KTRACS. And KTRACS, we've heard about the opioid crisis. We've talked about that before. KTRACS is a computer system or a cloud-based system where doctors go in and input those people who they are prescribing opioids to. That way people can't doctor shop and go from doctor to doctor. That KTRACS system has never been funded by the state. It's always been funded by grants. And those grants are ending. And if we don't fund it, we're going to be in trouble. And actually, that KTRACS system is the reason why Kansas has not had the opioid crisis that other states have had, because we've been really proactive in making sure that we take care of that situation. She vetoed it.
Right.
About $700,000 for that system.
Wasn't that much money?
No, $700,000 or so is what she vetoed. Then we have a mental health piece. There was actually a couple of counties where they needed some extra help to keep their mental health facilities going. Sedgwick was one of them. Shawnee's another one. There's about $1.8 or $9 million in that. She vetoed that. That really hurt those counties. And then the last piece is a reading program that they were going to try, and she vetoed that. And it also didn't have a huge appropriation, $750,000, I think it was. Something like that.
The capers veto surprised me. The KTRAC, because KTRAC, as you mentioned, it's for doctors, keeps individuals from doctor shopping, going to one, getting prescription, then going to another doctor, getting another pain prescription, where it's all on computer, so the second doctor can look it up and say, well, you just got a prescription from Dr. A over here yesterday. Why are you here?
Yeah. Well, that's important.
It is important, and and we've been able to fund it with grants from the federal government. Those grants are running out. $700,000 in our budget. It's not tremendous. It's important, but not.
Sure.
But to save that, and you think of the number of abuses that could occur now, because we will not have that online. The doctors will not have. The pharmacists will not have that. So,
and actually on that KTRACS system, I actually think that we should be funding, that's a core function of government, Doug, another one of those core functions.
Right.
Well, what they did was they took fee sweeps out of the Kansas Board of Healing Arts, the Pharmacy Board, and the Dental Board to make up the other half of that. So half of it was $700,000 from the SGF, the State General Fund, and then the other half was from these fee sweeps. We really need to stop that fee sweep. We need to fund that. So she just really needs to. I'm not sure who's advising her, but quite frankly, it makes no sense from any standpoint why she would veto that.
Well, tell me in that process when the legislature is going and she makes a decision like that. Who has input with her? Do you guys have input? Is there?
No. She has advisors.
She has her advisors, her staff, and in this area, I think they've just served her poorly because those are our core issues, as Dan mentioned, particularly the KTRAC and the funding of
the mental health and the mental health.
Yeah. I mean, that's a core value of the state. But the capers we're paying interest now where we would not need to pay interest.
Yeah, I don't understand that the waste of the money with that 10,000 with the 51 million. If you can apply it to that and get caught back up, help you to get caught back up, take you up above that 68% to some higher figure.
Right. Well, really, I think there's a reason. There's a reason behind it, and that is she wants to fund her Medicaid expansion. That's been a drive for her all session, clear down to the veto session. She was pounding away at us to do Medicaid expansion. Medicaid expansion costs about $106 million. And so all of these things that she's vetoing here gives her money to continue her drive towards that end.
Right.
So,
and that's a conservative figure.
Yeah, 106 million is a very conservative figure.
It could cost 150, 200 million.
Yeah.
And I think she's just holding that back, trying to get her Medicaid expansion in. And I think that probably will happen, but if we do that, we'll need a Republican version of it to include a number of different things that she will not like. But we'll have to wait and see.
Well, going to be an interesting time coming up. All right, we're going to cut away, take a break. You're watching Legislative Updates. We'll be right back. Welcome back to our final segment of Legislative Updates for today's show. And as you're looking at the screen, that's John Barker from the 70th District, from Abilene, Chapman, and numerous areas, as he says, most of the free world. And in the middle, you have Dan Hawkins, the House Majority Leader. And Dan's from Wichita, the 100th District.
100th District.
And appreciate you guys being in. You got a lot going on. There's a lot that's taking place. First off, we appreciate you guys taking time to come in and share this, because we read an article in the paper but don't necessarily understand it. And then we get the accurate information and straight from the horse's mouth, if you will. And so I know you got a lot coming up next week, and well, we just appreciate you taking time to come by and share it with us. And so you've been watching Legislative Updates.